Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hey, what's up everyone? This is Rakesh from motionhistory.com and I'm back with another brand new and super exciting After Effects tutorial. Cause in this video we will learn how to edit like a Hollywood trailer, and that too without using any third-party plugins at all. And this video doesn't need any further introduction. So now let's take a look on the preview. It is completely fine if the animation process might seem a bit complex at the first glance, but I assure you that it is not as daunting as it appears, because we will break down every concept and technique of this animation from scratch and making it super simple for everyone to learn, even if you're just a beginner. And we will also apply a bunch of effects one by one so that you don't lose the grip on the entire animation process, okay? So now, without any further ado, let's quickly roll the intro and jump straight into the After Effects. Alright, here we are back in After Effects, and like we always do, we'll start by creating a new composition, and let's call this one as text underscore 01. And for the dimension, we're going to go with 1920 by 1080, which is Full HD with 30 FPS and 10 seconds long, with the background color as complete black. And now just hit OK. And then grab the text tool and let's type in anything you want, but I'm going to go with the same text that we saw in the preview, that is nothing but the name of the character, which is James Bond. And yes, this is one of my favorite characters from movies. So let's go with Bond only, and then just select all of the letters and increase the font size up to 950 pixels like this and just make it bold, okay? And now we can move the layer at the center of our composition using the aligned window. And by the way, if you are not able to see this aligned window on your screen, you can always go to this window and make sure this align is checked, okay? And now the name of the font that we are using here is Steelfish, and it's basically a free font that can be found easily on the internet, but I have even given a link in the description box below so that anyone can download it, okay? And after this, we're going to go to this file and we're going to import an image of multiple brush strokes like this, and then just drag it into the timeline like this, and then just hit S to see the scaling properties. And we are going to scale this in a reverse direction, which is minus 150% like this. All right, and now we can just set the track matte of the Bond text layer to alpha matte like this, and then click on this little arrow right here and then go to add, and we will add an opacity like this, and open the range selector 1 and make sure to stay at the very beginning of your timeline, and first decrease the opacity all the way to 0 and then drop a keyframe on the offset, and then go to just maybe around 20 frames only, and then increase the offset value back to 100% like this, okay? And now let's quickly open up this advanced section, and first of all we are going to turn on this randomize order, and for the random seed we are going to set this value to 70, and for the smoothness I think we should bring this value down to 50% like this. All right, and now if we see the preview, this is what we will have. Yeah, that looks pretty good at the moment, but we still have a lot of things to do. All right, and now we'll create a new composition, and we're going to call this one as image this time with the same settings, and then just hit OK. And let's import an image of James Bond, which is right here, and then just hit open and just bring the image into the timeline. And on top of this image we're going to place our text layer like this, and we will even change the blending mode of the text to stencil alpha, okay? And then just select the image and then hit S to see the scaling properties, and we're going to scale down this up to 73%, okay? And now just place the image wherever you want, but I'm gonna go with this. Yeah, this is the right spot. All right, and then just do a right click, go to new and add an adjustment layer, okay? And now just turn on the title action, save, and then pick up the pen tool, and then we're gonna simply draw a diamond kind of shape like this, and then just hold alt or the option key and just click on these four corners, and it's gonna convert it into the smooth corners. All right, as you can see, this is what we have to do. And now we'll search for an effect which is called curves, and then just drag this effect on top of the image layer. And by the way, if you're not able to see this tab on your screen, you can always go to this window and make sure that this effects and presets is checked. Okay, and then in the settings, of course, we just have to manipulate the RGB channels in order to have a little bit of darkness in the picture. So I think it's better if we just keep this curve like this. Okay, and then we can even turn off this title action save, and I think it's better if we just move this picture a bit to the right so that we can see the face very properly like this. All right, and after this we can create a new folder in the project window, and let's call this as assets. And basically this folder will hold all of our assets that we have imported or will be importing. All right, and then let's go back to this text composition, select the text layer, and then hit U to see the keyframes, and select both the keyframes, hit F9 to easy ease them. And there is no need to tweak or modify the graph because the default curvature will suffice. All right, but it's all up to you that if you want to modify the curve, the stage is all yours in After Effects. Okay, and now let's go back to this image composition, and then let's create a new composition, and we're going to call it as this time text underscore 02. Okay, with the same settings, hit OK. And now we'll copy the layers from text 1 and then paste here back in text 2 composition, and move the time indicator, and then select the text and just decrease the font size a little bit like this, and then just do a double click to edit the text and just type the first name, that is James Bond. Okay, and then align this at the center like this, and we can now just click on these little boxes right here to convert the layer into a 3D layer like this. Okay, and after this we're going to search for another effect which is called roughen edges, and just drag this onto this brush stroke. And now let's change the resolution from quarter to full, and then in the settings we'll simply bring this border amount down to 0, and also for the edge sharpness, and we're only going to bring up this complexity value up to 10. Okay, and now if we just turn off this effect, we can see the difference very clearly within our text layer, as you can see. And this is the only reason we have applied this roughen edges. Okay, and now we can just select this text layer, hit U to see the keyframes, and let's bring this last keyframe right here at 15 frames only. Okay, and if we do a scrub preview, you will see the same opacity animation that we applied a couple of minutes ago on a text layer in this text 1 composition. And we don't really want the same thing on this text, so what we'll do is we'll first of all close this layer and again open the layer, and then in the advanced section we'll simply change this based on value from characters to words. And now if we see that every word will pop up one by one, as you can see, and this is what we really needed. Okay, and then just close everything up again, and after this we can create a new composition, and let's call this as maybe grunge image. Okay, and we'll keep the settings same as before, and then just hit OK. And after this, go back to this project window, and we're going to bring in our image comp into the timeline, and then in the effects tab we're going to search for an effect which is called posterize, and we need the first one, not the posterize time. So just drag the posterize effect onto the layer like this, and then we're going to search for another effect that is called curves. Okay, and just do a double click to apply that up, and then in the settings of posterize we will simply increase this level up to 12, and we're going to modify the curve a bit, something like this, and yeah, much better. Okay, and after this we can go back to this project window, and it's time to bring in our text 1 composition into the timeline, and we can change this track matte of the image to alpha matte. All right, now just select both the layers and then go to this edit and click on duplicate, or just use the shortcut that is Control or Command D. Okay, now click on it and then select this image layer, and we're basically going to delete this curse effect first of all, and then instead of curse effect we are going to search for another effect that is called find edges, and drag this effect into the effects window, and again search for another one that is called Venetian blinds, and just drag this into the window again. Okay, and then in the settings of find edges we'll first of all check this invert, and we'll set this percentage value up to 50, and then for the Venetian blinds we're going to set this transition completion to maybe let's go with 30%, and then for the angle I'm gonna go with 35, and for the width let's keep the width to 7. Okay, and convert all of the layers into a 3D layer, and then just do a right click, go to new, and create a new adjustment layer. Okay, and now if we just take a moment to analyze the work we have done, we'll notice that we have gained a lot of color contrast and darkness in our scene, which doesn't look nice to our eyes. Okay, And to fix it, we can just select all the image layers like this and then hit T to see the opacity, and we're gonna decrease the opacity down to 70%, and for the bottom layer we're gonna set this value to 90. And now this looks much better, right? And after this we can just close all of the layers and then select this adjustment layer, hit enter to rename it, and let's call this as CB for color balance, and we're gonna search for the same, which is color balance, and just drag this into the effects window like this. Okay, and now for the sake of this tutorial I'm not gonna tweak the numbers here because it may take some time to achieve a good color balance. So instead I'm just gonna paste the same settings that I used while I was preparing the preview for this tutorial, and you can of course pause this video and capture the exact settings if you want, or just play around with the numbers and see what works best for you. But always remember, you just have to find a best settings, not the perfect one. Okay, and now let's continue with the work. Okay, so now just hit T to see the opacity again for this adjustment layer and bring down the value down to 50% like this. Okay, and after this we can go back to this project window, select this assets folder and go to file, and we are going to import image of textures. These are the two texture I'm talking about, and then just hit open. Okay, and bring them into the timeline like this, and then we will turn off the second texture for a while and select the first one and go to effects and presets tab and search for a curves effect, and just do a double click to apply that up, and after this we'll look for a tint. All right, and again just do a double click, and in the settings of curve we are only going to tweak or modify this RGB channel from the top and from the bottom as well like this, and we also need to have a little bit of curve like this. Okay, so that we can have a lot of darkness in this picture. All right, and then just hit S to see the scaling properties and just do the reverse scaling like this, and I want to make it something just like this big. All right, and then just hit T to see the opacity, and we are going to bring down this value down to 25%, and then we can now just turn on the second texture, and we will also turn both the layers into a 3D layer. All right, now just copy both the effects from the effects window by holding Ctrl or Command on the keyboard, and then just paste them onto the second texture like this. All right, and now we can just hit S to see the scaling properties and then scale this up a lot to something like this. And now we can just hit T to see the opacity, and we're going to bring down this value down to 15%. All right, and now after this we can go back to this project window, and then we're going to bring in the brush stroke again, and we're going to place it right on top of the texture too. And then we can just change the track matte of the second texture to alpha inverted matte, and we'll also change the blending mode to color dodge. Okay, and now we can also scale this layer a little bit up like this, and I think this entire scene would still look great if we just scale down the second texture to just something like this. All right, and there's something we forgot to do, and that is to change the blending mode of this image to linear dodge, and now our entire scene looks much more vibrant than ever, right? And also turn this layer into a 3D layer, and now what we'll do is we'll bring in our second text into the timeline and place it right on top of it, and then hit S and then scale down it like this. All right, and then we're gonna place it right here at the bottom, and then we will do a right click in the timeline, go to new, and let's add a null object. All right, and then select these four layers from the bottom and pick up the pick whip tool and parent this all the way to the null, and we will also parent the second text to the null object as well. All right, and once we are done placing all of these layers into the timeline, it's time to select these four bottom layers and then hit S to see the scaling properties and then scale them down to 88%. All right, and after this we'll select this null object, hit P to see the position, and then make sure to stay at just 1 second, and then drop a keyframe on the position and just move few frames forward in time, and then just move this a little bit up, something like this. All right, and then just select the second text and just position it again so that we can have almost equal gap on top and at the bottom. All right, and after this we can just move this layer a bit later in time like this, and now we can see the preview. This is what we will have. All right, and now just place the time indicator at 1 second like this and select the second texture and the color balance, and then hold alt or the option key and open a square bracket to trim these two layers like this, and then we can now just select the texture one and the color balance and hit T to see their opacities, And then for the texture one, first of all, drop this keyframe with 25% value and then go at 20 frames backward in time, and then we can just bring this value down to 0. All right, and after this we will move at the start of this layer, and then we have to bring this opacity value down to 0 first of all, and then drop a keyframe, and then just move 3 frames forward in time like this and bring this value again to 50%, and then I think at 1 second and 10 frames, which is right here. All right, we have to drop a keyframe with 50% value again and again for 3 frames forward in time. We're gonna bring this value down to 0, and we will also trim this layer by holding Alt or the Option key and close a square bracket like this. Okay, and this is what we needed, and we can even select these two keyframes, hit F9 to easy ease them like this. All right, and now after this we will just select all of them and then hit U to close them, and then go to this text one composition, and we're basically going to place this layer to start from 25th frame like this, and then go back to the grunge image, and we are going to move this null object so that the first keyframe of this layer exactly falls at 1 second and 10 frames like this. Okay, and after this we can even move this text to composition right at 1 second and 15 frames. Okay, and now if we see the preview, this is what it's gonna look. Yeah, I think this is what we really needed. All right, and I think it is better if we just move this text a little bit down like this. Okay, and we are now done with this composition. All right, and now let's create a new composition, and we're gonna call this as maybe compile, and then just hit OK with the same settings, and then just to right click anywhere in this timeline, go to new, and let's add a new solid. Okay, and we'll keep the color as complete black, and then just hit OK. And now before we proceed with this video, let me tell you that if you want to follow along with this tutorial, you can download the free project file from our official website, whose link has been given in the description box below. So don't forget to check it out. All right, and now let's quickly bring in our texture one into the timeline, and then hit S to see the scaling properties, and we're going to scale this in the reverse order, that is minus 180% like this. Okay, and again just select the layer, hit T to see the opacity, and bring down this value down to 10, and we'll also convert this layer into a 3D one like this. All right, and now on top of this layer we're going to bring in our grunge image into the timeline, and now we need a brush reveal, so we have to create a new composition for that, and let's call this as brush reveal, and I believe this is the perfect name for this composition, and then just hit OK. After this, go to this file, and we're going to import a file of the brush, which is right here, and then hit open and place it into the SS folder, and then drag it into the timeline. Do a right click, go to transform, and flip it horizontally. Okay, and go back to this compile composition and bring this brush reveal into the timeline and place it right here on top, and then select the grunge image, and we are gonna change the track matte of this to luma matte, and then for the brush reveal we're gonna change the blending mode of this to silhouette luma. Okay, because we have this luma into the track matte of for the grunge image. Okay, so if we have luma here, then the mode should also be luma for the brush reveal, and then we can also turn on this collapse transformation, and then we can just move this brush stroke a bit later in time like this to the right, and if we now see the preview, we will have this kind of reveal, as you can see, and this looks really cool. Okay, and maybe we can do one more thing. You can just change the text from James Bond to Daniel Craig, so just do a right click and let's go with Daniel Craig. This is the actual name. Okay, and don't forget to scale down the size a little bit, the font size like this. Okay, and now this will do the work. So if we now go back to this compile, we will see preview, and this is what we were actually going for. Okay, yeah, and now let's drag this text to composition on top, and then again the brush reveal like this. Okay, and just change the track matte of this text to alpha inverted matte, and we're going to change the blending mode of this brush reveal again to silhouette alpha this time. All right, and now we can just turn on the collapse transformation for this text layer as well, and we were also supposed to turn on the collapse transformation for the grunge image, not the brush reveal. So just turn it on. Okay, and after this we can just hit S to see the scaling properties, and we're going to scale this up to, maybe let's go with 150%. All right, and now just convert this into a 3D layer as well, and after this we will also uh, hit S to see the scaling properties for the brush reveal, and we're gonna increase the value up to 117 like this. Okay, and after this we are going to create another composition, and we're going to go with another name, that is maybe text reveal, because we will need another brush stroke to reveal our text this time, and then just hit OK. And now let's import another video file of a brush stroke. So I'm going to go with the second brush stroke, which is right here, and then just hit open and move this into the assets folder and bring this into the timeline as well, and then move the layer few frames forward like this. Okay, and now go back to the compile composition, and we'll first of all bring down the scale size of this text to maybe 30%. Okay, like this, and then yes, that looks good. And after this we're gonna place the text reveal composition on top of the layers, and then change the blending mode of this layer to stencil luma like this. Okay, and now if we do the scrub preview, we'll see that something is not right with this composition, and we have to find what went wrong. And to do so, we can just start scanning the layers with their blending modes and the track matte options we have set for each and every one of the layers. Okay, so for this one, I think mode with this stencil luma looks perfect, and I think for this one, let's see what we have set. So basically I believe for this second layer it should be silhouette luma, and then we don't need the track matte for this, and then just turn on the brush reveal layer like this. Okay, and now we can even just select these two layers and then just put it on top. And now if we see the preview, this is what it's gonna look like. And now I think we are almost there. Okay, so now let's move into the text reveal composition and just place this layer at the start of our timeline like this, and then go back to the compile composition, select the top two layers, and then just move few frames forward in time like this, and then select the brush reveal and move this as well. Okay, and now if we do the scrub preview, here comes the text, and it will be first painted out like this, and then the bond will appear. Okay, so yeah, I think we are almost there with this animation in this composition, and we will do the changes or any modifications later on if needed. Okay, but for now it looks perfect to me, and yeah, this is it. So now let's quickly create a new composition, and for the last time, and we're going to call this one as render finally. Okay, so make sure to type everything correct and then just hit OK with the same settings, and then let's quickly continue the work because we still have few things left to do. Okay, so in this render composition, the very first thing we'll do is to bring this compile composition into the timeline, turn it into a 3D layer, and also turn on the collapse transformation. Okay, and after this we can just create another composition and just call it as maybe transition out with the same settings. Hit OK, and then select the assets folder, and we're going to import the rest of the video files of brush stroke, which is right here as you can see, but we are not gonna select the fourth and the second brush, and then just hit open. Okay, and after this we can just bring our brush one into the timeline like this, and then go back to the render composition and place the transition out composition right on top of the compile, and change the blending mode of this to silhouette luma. Okay, and now if you see, this is what we will have. Just right here, if we just place this layer, as you can see, it's gonna do the transition out, as you can see for this scene, right? It's gonna paint the scene out, and this is what we actually needed. All right, and I'm getting the strokes on this text just because I was basically working with some other animation before recording this tutorial. So to fix it, what I can do is I can just jump into the text 2 composition, select the text layer, and change this value from stroke over fill to fill over stroke like this, and it will disappear in no time. Okay, but don't worry, you're not gonna see these strokes on your end if you're following this tutorial from the beginning. All right, and then go back to the render composition, and then let's create another one, and we're going to call this one as maybe multiple brush strokes, okay, with the same settings, and then hit OK. And in this composition we're going to bring all of our video layers of brush stroke like this into the timeline. And now just select all of the layers, and we are going to duplicate these layers 3 times in total, so that we will end up having 28 layers in total. All right, so now just quickly press Ctrl or Command D on your keyboard to duplicate the layers like this, and then place it on top and do the same thing again, put it on top, and for the last time and place it right on top like this. Okay, and after this we can just select all of them now and change their blending modes to overlay, which is right here, and then we can even hit T to see their opacities and bring this value down to 15% like this. Okay, and now just select all of the layers, hit U to close them, and after this we will start placing the layers with a difference of 15 frames for each of them. So what I mean is we can just move the second layer to 15th frame like this. Okay, and then for the third frame we are going to move the stamp indicator at once again like this, and then move it here, and then do the same thing for 1 second and 15th frame, which is right here. Okay, and drag the layer and keep doing the same thing for all of the 28 layers we have in the timeline. Okay, and it is just gonna take a minute or so, and it is not really necessary to keep the difference of 15 frames. It could be any number of frames you want. So now I'm going to fast forward this video so that it doesn't take much of our time. Okay, and once you are done placing the layers, we can now just go back to the render composition and bring this multiple brush strokes composition into the timeline, and then convert this into a 3D layer and change the blending mode to overlay, and then hit T to see the opacity and bring this value down to 15%. Okay, and now just search for the curves here, and then just drag the effect onto this layer, and then in the settings we are going to modify this curve, tweak the curve like this. All right, and now we can even move the layer, and the moment we see the image coming up like this. Okay, and now if we do the scrub preview, this is what we will have, right, as you can see. And we can now even turn on the collapse transformation like this, and there we go, we are done with this multiple brush strokes now. Okay, and finally we'll create one last composition, and we're going to call this as filter distort. Okay, with the same settings, and then just hit OK. And in here we will do a right click anywhere in this timeline, and then go to new, and let's add a new adjustment layer, and then hit enter to rename it, and let's call this one as zoom. Okay, zoom 1. And on this layer we're going to apply an effect that is called transform. Make sure to type the spellings correctly, and then just apply this onto the top of the layer, and then from the project window let's bring in our James Bond image into the timeline and scale down a bit like this. Okay, and after this we can just go to the settings of transform, and then scale up this value up to 150 like this. Okay, and after this we can just do a right click again, and we are going to add a new solid, and we'll keep the color as complete white, and then just hit OK, and then go to the composition settings and decrease the duration of this timeline to 10 seconds like this, and now just scale this timeline a bit, and now just place the time indicator at 10 frames and move all these two layers at 10 frame, and then we're gonna trim this layer at 1 second like this. Okay, and after this we can simply change the blending mode of this solid to add, and we can now just hit T to see the opacity, and make sure to stay at the very beginning of this layer, and then bring this value down to 0 first of all, drop a keyframe, and then move 2 or 3 frames forward in time, and then increase this value up to 50, and then go all the way to the end of this layer, and then again bring this value down to 0. All right, and now if we do a scrub preview, we will see this type of animation, right, with these two layers. And after this we can just quickly create a new adjustment layer again, and then hit enter to rename it, and let's call this as blur. Okay, and on top of this layer we're going to apply a camera lens blur. Make sure to type everything correctly again, and then just drag this effect onto the top of the layer, and after this let's move the blur layer to 20 frames, and then trim it at 1 second and 10 frames like this. And after this we can just stay at the very beginning of this layer and bring this blur radius down to 0 first of all, and then drop a keyframe, hit U to see the keyframes, and then stay somewhere here, and then bring this value up to 15 and stay at the end and bring this value down to 0. All right, and now after this we can just do a right click, go to new, and we're going to add a new adjustment layer, and this, let's call this one as exposure. Okay, and we're going to search for the same in the effects window and just drag this exposure effect on top like this, and then change this value to exposure value to -2, and we are not going to touch any other settings. And after this we can just keep this layer selected and pick up the ellipse tool and hold Control or Command Shift on the keyboard and draw a perfect mask in the shape of a circle like this. Okay, and then move this at the center and then hit F to see the feather, and we're going to bring this value up to 500. All right, like this, and I think it's better if we just invert this up. All right, and we can even hit T to see the opacity and bring this one down to 50. All right, and I think it's better if we align this perfectly at the center. Okay, and now let's create a new adjustment layer, and we're going to call this one as motion tile. Okay, and copy the name and search for the same effect in the effects window right here, and then just drag the motion tile on top of this layer, and then just use the Y value to pull the image up, and we're going to place the black line right here at the center. And to get rid of this space we can just scale up this image by 1% like this. Okay, and there we go, and now we can again create a new adjustment layer for the last time. We're going to call this one as zoom 2. Okay, and after this we can just apply the same transform effect, which is right here, and then just drag it onto the layer and scale up this value up to 115 like this. Okay, and now move the zoom to layer at 17 frames. Okay, which is right here, and then we can trim this layer down at 22nd frames. All right, and after this we can move the motion tile right here like this, and we will also trim this layer at 25th frame. Okay, and now we can just turn off this image layer and go back to the render composition and open up the project window and bring this filter distort into the timeline like this, and turn on the collapse transformation and place this layer a bit later in time like this. And now if we do the scrub preview, this is what we will have, and we're almost there, but we just need to do some tweaks and modifications here and there in some of the compositions. Okay, and we'll be all done. All right, so now let's go back to this grunge image, and we're going to add a new solid, and we can just call this one as V for vignette, and we'll keep the color as complete black, and then just hit OK. Now make sure the layer is selected in the timeline, and then grab the pen tool, and we're going to make a mask in the shape of diamond like this, and we can then just hold Alt or the Option key on the keyboard and click on these four corners, and After Effects will convert these four corners into a smoother one. All right, like this, and then hit M to see the mask we have applied, and then click on this inverted, hit F to see the feather properties, and increase this value up to 400 like this. Okay, and we can even adjust the points if needed, so just move this one a bit up and this one out of the frame and from the left as well. Okay, and then just move the text to layer maybe somewhere near to 2 seconds like this. And now let's go back to the render composition, and we're gonna move the transition out at maybe 4 second and 15 frames right here. All right, so after this we can now do a scrub preview to see what's happening, and I think this is what we needed. So what if we just place this text to a little bit here like this, and now if we again see the preview, this is what it's gonna look. Okay, and this looks very clean and perfect and just the way we wanted. All right, yeah, and now I just noticed that we are getting this line just because of the compile, because initially the level, I mean the scale level is 100% only, and we can even just increase this up by 1%, and it's gonna disappear the line, as you can see, and this is what we needed. And now let's take a look on the preview. All right. Yeah, everything is working perfectly. And now if we just add a music at the background to see how it's gonna hit differently. And trust me, this entire scene was really awesome with the background music, but there is something I noticed that I made a mistake while typing the name of the character, which is right here in the text too. So I think I just made a mistake in the spelling, and it should be basically AI, like this, okay? And now let's take a look for the last time on the preview. And yes, here we are with our final result, and this looks just the way we wanted it to be. And this animation can still be taken to a level up if we just add some more grunge or scratches or maybe some smoke if possible. And just use a little bit of your imagination, and you will even end up with more interesting trailer than the one we have just created right now, okay? Because After Effects knows no boundaries at all. So yeah, that's a wrap up for today guys, and thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you really enjoyed learning today's animation concept. And if you really did, then make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and also press the bell icon so that you never miss any upcoming tutorials. And lastly, don't forget to follow me as Motion Street on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, keep dreaming, keep creating. Peace out.